Many businesses make the same mistake at a critical point in lead handling. They assume a lead is ready to move simply because interest has appeared. A form was filled, a message was answered, a call was booked, a few good questions were asked, and the business interprets these signals as proof that the opportunity should now be pushed into a new stage. But interest is not the same as readiness. And readiness is not the same as handoff suitability. That distinction matters because handoff changes the operating logic around the lead. It changes who owns the next step. It changes what kind of conversation happens next. It changes the level of urgency, the level of pressure, and the expectations around movement. If that shift happens too early, the lead experiences friction. The conversation becomes heavier before enough trust, clarity, or internal readiness exists to support that weight. What looked like momentum starts weakening. The business may assume the lead lost interest, but very often the opportunity was handed off before it was mature enough for that kind of progression. The opposite problem is just as damaging. Some businesses hold leads too long. They keep them in early stage handling after the lead had already shown enough fit, enough intent, and enough movement to justify a more direct next step. Now momentum weakens for a different reason. The lead is ready for sharper movement, but the business continues operating at a lower intensity rhythm. Follow-up becomes too soft. The next step stays vague. Ownership remains blurred. The opportunity does not receive the decisiveness it now deserves. This is why handoff timing matters so much. A lead should not move forward because the business wants the pipeline to look active, and it should not stay back just because the business is afraid to misclassify readiness. Both mistakes damage momentum. A lead handed off too early feels pressured. A lead handed off too late feels slowed down. In both cases, the opportunity becomes harder to interpret. The business sees activity, but not enough clean progression. This problem usually comes from one missing discipline. The business has not defined clearly enough what must be true before a lead changes handling logic. Not what feels promising, not what seems encouraging. What must actually be visible? Has the problem been clearly expressed? Has fit been established? Has intent become credible? Has the lead shown signs that a more direct next step is realistic now? Without that clarity, handoff becomes subjective. And subjective handoff creates inconsistency. One person moves leads too early. Another waits too long. One treats curiosity as readiness. Another mistakes readiness for hesitation. Now, the pipeline may still be full, but the transitions inside it become harder to trust. That is dangerous, because handoff is not just a transfer of attention, it is a transfer of momentum. If the business gets the timing wrong, the opportunity does not simply pause, it becomes heavier to recover. Trust has to be rebuilt, context has to be reestablished, urgency has to be reread, and energy that should have gone into progress gets spent repairing the transition. This is why handoff should never be treated as an administrative step. It is a strategic threshold. The lead is leaving one kind of handling and entering another. That change only works well when the opportunity has actually earned it. Otherwise, the business is not moving the lead forward. It is moving the lead out of sync with its real level of readiness. And once that happens, the pipeline starts losing quality exactly at the moment where better coordination should have created more momentum. A strong handoff requires more than movement. It requires translation. One person, one system, or one stage is giving the opportunity to another. If that transfer happens well, the lead feels continuity. If it happens badly, the lead feels reset. That difference is critical because a lead does not experience handoff as an internal process. The lead experiences it as a shift in coherence. Does the next interaction reflect what was already understood? Does the next person know what matters? Does the next step feel like a continuation or like the process has started over? This is why timing alone is not enough. A lead can be handed off at the right moment, but still lose momentum if the transfer is weak. The next owner needs more than a name and a vague status. They need usable context. What problem has been expressed clearly? What matters most to the lead? What has already been asked? What level of urgency exists? What kind of movement is realistic next? What should not need to be explained again? Without that, the handoff creates friction, even if readiness was real. And friction at this stage is expensive. The lead has already invested attention. The business has already earned engagement. If the next interaction feels disconnected, trust weakens very quickly. This is why good handoff logic does not only define when a lead should move, it also defines what must move with it. Ownership, context, expectation, and next step logic. If any of those are missing, the transfer is incomplete. And incomplete transfers usually create one of two outcomes. Either the lead gets pushed forward without enough continuity, or the lead slows down because the next stage does not feel more useful than the last one. Neither outcome protects momentum. A handoff should make progression easier, not heavier. That is the standard. If the next stage adds confusion, repetition, or delay, the business has not really moved the opportunity forward. It has only changed where the problem sits. This is why handoff quality should be treated as part of lead handling quality itself, not as a separate operational detail, but as one of the places where readiness, timing, and structure all meet. When those elements align, the lead feels movement. When they do not, the pipeline may still look active, but progress becomes harder to trust.
The real advantage of handling handoff timing well is that the business stops treating stage changes as administrative movement and starts treating them as momentum decisions. That changes behavior immediately. A lead is no longer moved forward just because a box can be checked. It is moved forward when the opportunity has reached a condition where a different kind of handling can now create more value than the previous one. That is a much better standard because it protects both sides. It protects early leads from being pushed before enough readiness exists, and it protects ready leads from being held back inside slower logic that no longer fits their pace. It also improves accountability. Once the business defines what makes a lead ready for handoff, subjectivity starts shrinking. Different people are less likely to interpret the same opportunity through completely different standards. That creates cleaner transitions, stronger ownership, and a pipeline that is easier to trust. This is where handoff stops being a simple transfer of responsibility. It becomes a transfer of momentum, context, and appropriate next step pressure. And that is exactly what should happen. A strong handoff does not reset the relationship, it sharpens it. The lead should feel that the process is becoming more useful, more relevant, and more aligned with where the opportunity actually is. Not more confusing, not more repetitive, not more disconnected. When businesses get this right, pipeline quality improves quietly. Fewer leads are misclassified, fewer opportunities are slowed unnecessarily, fewer transitions create friction that later has to be repaired. The system becomes lighter because energy is no longer being wasted recovering from poor timing. That is the real value of handoff discipline. Not simply moving leads from one place to another, but making sure that each transition happens at a point where the opportunity can actually benefit from it. When that discipline is missing, the business keeps creating movement without enough progression. When it is present, the pipeline becomes easier to manage, easier to read, and much less likely to lose momentum at the exact moment where coordination should have made it stronger. That is why handoff should never be treated as a neutral stage change. It should happen only when the opportunity is ready for different handling and when the context moving with it is strong enough to protect continuity. Otherwise, the business is not creating progress.
It is only changing who carries the confusion.